So here are some more advanced options. In this game I want this meteor to start at the right, to go to the left, but when it gets to this side I don't want it to go all the way back. I want it to disappear and then reappear over here. So if I click the green flag, you'll see what I mean. It comes all the way across, and then when it gets to the left it disappears and it starts from the right again, and then it comes all the way across. So in order to understand this, we need to understand a little bit about the coordinates on the screen. So when the game starts, I've got the meteor to go to the x coordinate 240. So across the screen we go from 240 this side to 0 to minus 240 on this side. So it's over here on 240. So it says go to x 240. Now the y is the vertical up here. So instead of putting in a specific number and saying I want it to start here, so this is x 240 y minus 2, I've said that you pick a random place from up here and down here. So you could do a random one, or you could just use this and then put x minus 2 and then it starts from there. So I've picked a random one. I've moved it up and down from 78 to 94. So when I start this game it will start, if you just ignore the rocket, every time I start it, it will start a random place somewhere on that side. Okay, so that's what it does at the start of the game. Now, what I've then done is I've said forever it moves minus 2 steps. So it moves from the positive numbers to the negative numbers. It moves to the left. So if I press this, it'll go to the left. The trouble is, when it gets to the left, it's just going to stop and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get there as far as it can go there, and then it stops and it can't go any further, which is why I'm using this. So I'm saying that if the x position, so in other words, if the position across the screen, the vertical number, is less than minus 230, then something needs to happen. So at the moment that number there is, the x position is minus 225. So when it gets over to here, something needs to happen when it goes past minus 230. So I've said then it has to go back, and I've put this, I've copied this, duplicated this and put this in here again. So I've said it needs to go back to the other side and pick a random number. So it needs to go back over here and pick a random number up and down here. Now this has got to fit in that forever loop so that it keeps doing it again and again. So it looks like that. So if I click that in there and pop that in there, it will get to the left hand side, and once it's finished it will go back and it will start moving across the screen again. So some of these blocks are quite complex to build, so let's just have a look at how we build some of these. So the go to x, go to y one is quite simple. We can come over here and we can get it there. So if we move this to where we want it to go, that coordinate will say the right coordinate for what we want. So that's quite easy. The pick random needs to come from operators down here. So what I did to get my numbers was I moved it up here, and then I checked the y coordinate, and then I moved it down there and checked the y coordinate, and then I went to operators and I got a pick random 1 to 10, and I changed it to the 2 numbers that I needed. So that's how I did that. So I put that in there, and then below here this one again looks a little bit more complicated. So what we've done here is we've got a less than block, which you will find down here. So this is my less than, it says less than 50 in this one, and I've just changed that to the number that I want for this side of the screen. And then I've got this x position block by coming down here onto the motion and just getting it there and then popping that in there. So if the x position is less than minus 230, in other words if it's less than minus 230 across there, so that goes in my if then, in my selection. And then underneath here I've got go to. So all I've done is I've taken this block and duplicated it so it goes back to where it started from. So that is how you build that block. let's look at another more advanced option. So this is the Space Invaders option. And you'll see I've only got one Space Invader here. And the reason for this is with NPCs, you should get one of them behaving as you want to get it to behave before you start to copy the code and make any changes. So on the Space Invaders idea, it starts from one side, it moves across to the other, but then it drops down a little bit before it comes back to the other side. So it's very, very slowly, it's moving across the screen and it's getting down towards the bottom of it. So you'll see I've started with some code that says when the game starts, go to a special place on the screen. So go to the starting place. And I've got it to point towards the left. Now I could have had it going that way towards the left to the right. That doesn't really matter too much. Now the next bit that I've got is forever it's going to move 2 steps. So if I start this off, it will go to the left for 2 steps, but then it will get stuck at the edge of the screen and it will just stop. So what I need to do is I need to add some more code that says if it's touching the edge. So if we have a look at this, I've got this if touching edge, and then so I've gone over to the sensing, and then I've got this if touching mouse pointer, and I've changed it to edge. So that's where I've got that piece from. It's not under the motion, it's under sensing. So if you're touching the edge of the screen, then I've said change Y by 20, so the vertical axis, change it by minus 20, so it goes down. Every time it touches the edge, it drops down, and then I've said if you're at the edge of the screen, which you are, bounce. Now what that means is go the other way across the screen. So if I put that on its own, that's not going to work because it needs to be in this forever loop. It needs to keep going forever. So if I pop this in the forever loop, and then try that again, you'll see that when it gets to the edge of the screen, so over here, if you're touching the edge, then change Y by minus 20, and then if you're on the edge, bounce, so go to the other side, so flip around and start moving towards the other side of the screen. Now of course if you make this number bigger, so minus 50, you'll find it moves, it'll jump down the screen a lot further. If you change move 2 steps, to move 10 steps, then it's going to move across the screen a lot quicker. So you can play around with those and change those things around. Okay, so this is a really complex one. So this is a Pac-Man style maze, and the non-playing characters, the NPCs here that we bothered about, are the sharks. So the starfish don't move, it's the sharks that we bothered about and how they move. So when I click the green flag, you'll see that the sharks move randomly around the maze, but they can't go over the red lines. So that's got to be built into the program so that they follow the rules in the maze and they stay within the red lines. Okay, so to start with, you'll see that this is quite familiar, this first bit, similar to a lot of games. So we get the NPC to go to the starting position that we want them to get to by using the coordinates. So if I just click here, you'll see I'm talking about this NPC. So if I click the green flag and then stop it, so this NPC starts here, that's its coordinate. So it goes there, and I'm getting it to point in a direction 90. So you'll see that that means it's pointing right. So it doesn't have to point right, but that's just the way that this one's actually doing it. It's pointing right. Okay, so if we look at something else down here, we've got forever move 2 steps. So if I do this, it's just going to move straight over the maze. So if I click the green flag, it goes straight over the maze and it just ignores it. So what we need it to do is to follow the rules. And the way that we do that is we use this if touching colour red here. So this is going to have to fit inside this forever loop, so we keep checking. It doesn't just check if it's touching the red once, it keeps checking again and again. So the forever loop, the forever block is repetition, so it keeps repeating this. If touching colour red, and I get that red by clicking on the red and going down to this little pipette here and then clicking on it. And then when I click on it, I can actually go and click the bit that I want to be red. So I click it. So if touching colour red. So what it's going to do is going to do a couple of things if I have a look at this a bit at a time. First of all, it's going to move -2 steps. So it's going to step back. So when it touches the red, it's just going to step back. So if you keep your eye on this one and we watch it again, we press the green flag and it's just stopped. It's trying to move forward, it's moving back. It looks like it's not moving, but it's trying to move forward, and it's being told all the time, move forward 2 steps, move back 2 steps. Move forward 2 steps. Are you touching the red? Yes. Move back 2 steps. But what we want it to do is to change direction. And this is where we get the really complicated part coming in. So I've got this one that says turn 15 degrees. Okay, so it's going to turn, but we don't want it to turn just 15 degrees. I want it to turn either to the right or to the left 90 degrees. So all the time it's going to be changing the way that it's turning. It's facing this way, so if I get it to turn 90 degrees, it will come down here. If I get it to go minus 90, it will come down here. Another minus 90, it'll go there. Another minus 90 there, and so on. So I'll keep getting it to turn round and round and round. Okay, so what I need to do then is I just need to show you how I've got this rather complicated arrangement down here. So what we've got down here is we started off with a pick random. So from operators, pick random 1 to 10, and I've changed this from pick random 0 to 1. Okay, and then what I've done there is I've changed that. I've gone and got a multiply and put 180 in there. Okay, so we've changed that and we've put a multiply in there. So now we've got pick random 0 to 1. But what I want to do is I want to put this in here. So we're going to pick a random number between 0 and 1 and multiply it by 180. So this means we've got a sum. So it's either 1 times 180, which is 180, or 0 times 180, which is 0. And then we're going to take 90 away from our answer. So I need all this to fit into there. So I need to get hold of it. If you get hold of it in the wrong place, it'll break apart, and I need to make sure it stays together. So I'm getting hold of it, and I want to move it so this white glows here. So I'm moving it over here, and it goes in there. So let's just have a look at this complicated sum. So 1 times 180, we've already talked about this. It's either going to be 180 or 90. So if I take, it's going to be one. It's going to either be 180 or 0. So if it's 180 take away 90, that's 90 degrees. If it's 0 take away 90, it's minus 90. And this gives us our numbers that we need over here. So that's minus 90, sorry, that's plus 90, that's minus 90. In other words, what we've done is we made it either go right or left. So if I pop this in here now, then it's basically saying when you hit the wall, step back 2 steps and then either turn right or left. So you'll move away. So if you keep your eye on this now and watch it, it'll hit the wall and then it will move. So it keeps moving. So I've set the rotation style so it doesn't rotate. If you just ignore the little blue crab, I'm supposed to be moving that out of the way. So there, he's lost his lives. There we go. So it's game over. But that's the way that we can actually, if I just stop that, that's the way that we can actually make them move around. So if I get one doing what I want it to do, then I can duplicate it, and then I've got more sharks in my maze that I can use.